Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss any update from Rouse IAS Study Circle. Join the only official Telegram channel of Rouse IAS Study Circle to get the relevant materials and important updates.
Hello and welcome to the Daily News Simplified, the what, why and how of the newspaper analysis from the Civil Services Examinations perspective. So today we are going to discuss the Hindu Delhi edition dated 21st March 2022. The topics to be discussed have been displayed on your screen and the timestamping of the same has been provided in the description box below. So let us begin with our first topic. Japan still hopes India will join the RCEP. Now RCEP stands for Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. This topic has appeared in today's The Hindu Delhi edition at page number 10 in the International Relations section. Now the context of this very article is that recently a Japanese official has said that Japan has not given up the hope that India might reconsider joining the RCEP agreement from which it opted out in 2019. Now we all know that India and Japan shares a very cordial relationship with each other in terms of economy as well as culture. And that is why, being one of the greatest friends of India, Japan still hopes that India will enter into joining the RCEP agreement. This topic falls under the UPSC's scheme of syllabus in General Studies Paper 2 section International Relations in the subsection of the bilateral and regional groupings and agreements which involve India or affect the Indian interests. Now under this session, first we will discuss that what are the basics of RCEP. Then we'll discuss some of the stats and data related to RCEP, and in detail we will discuss that what are the multiple issues, the reasons because of which India has opted out from the RCEP in 2019. So now let us begin with our detailed discussion, first discussing that what is exactly meant by RCEP, what is Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Now RCEP was a free trade agreement which was proposed as an idea between 16 nations. And 10 nations out of these 16 nations were the ASEAN countries, that is Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam. All these are the Southeast Asian countries and that is why we call them as ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. In addition to these 10 members, there were 6 other members who were the FTA partners, that is the Free Trade Agreement partners of these ASEAN countries. And these 6 countries were China, Japan, India, South Korea, Australia and New Zealand. Now out of all these countries, India has decided not to enter into the RCEP agreement. That is why in 2019, India opted out finally from the RCEP. The negotiations of the RCEP were going since 2013, but finally in 2019, India opted out from the RCEP. Now, as far as the present status is concerned, RCEP has entered into force and the countries except India have joined the RCEP agreement and has created one of the world's largest free trade area. And this can also be gauged through the data, the stats which are associated with the RCEP. It is estimated that RCEP controls 25% of the world GDP, which as per the latest data is around 30% of the global GDP. RCEP then again accounts for the 30% of the world trade, 26% of the FDI flow and 45% of the world's population. But the point is that once India has opted out in 2019, now the population share of the RCEP which it commands has reduced to around 33%. That is the 1/3 of the global population. Despite this fact, this 1/3 population is also a very huge number and that is why it makes RCEP as one of the largest free trade areas. So these are the basics related to the RCEP, but the point is that the context of this very article is that Japan is hoping that India will join the RCEP. So in this very sense, we should understand that why has India opted out from RCEP, what were the arguments in principle which were provided by India and why the negotiations could not end at deciding some of the middle paths which could be agreeable to India as well as other countries. So this very chart shows the clear-cut differences between the India's stance and the stands of the other countries, that is the majority stand. So we will discuss all these issues, that is the base year, ratchet clause, rules of origin, tariff lines, data localization and safeguard mechanisms one by one in detail, so that you understand that what are those important points on which the negotiations could not end in deciding some middle path. The first issue was deciding the base year. Now this base year is in relation to tariffs calculation. India says that the tariff must be calculated on the base year of 2019, and other countries say that the tariffs must be calculated on the base year 2013. Now we'll discuss that what is the practical difference in these things. Now the point is that negotiations started in 2013, right? So let us assume that there is a product P, and let us assume in 2013 the tariff rates of this product was, let's say, 15%. But now what happened has that between 2013 to 2019, India has raised tariffs on many products. So let us say that in 2019, we assume that the tariff rate on this very product is around 20%. Now India says that whatever tariff reduction has to be concluded under this free trade agreement must be calculated on this base value. That means that if all the countries decide to reduce the tariff, let's say by 5%, so that 5% must be reduced on 2019, and hence the new tariff on this very product will be 20 minus 5%, that is 15%. So this will be the new tariff if the base year of 2019 is considered. But as the other countries are saying to take the base year as 2013, 5% reduction on 2013 will mean that now the tariffs will be just 10% on this very product. So now if the tariff is reduced to 10%, we can imagine that because India does not hold a lot of competitive manufacturing capacity as far as China, Japan and other Southeast Asian countries are considered, so this huge reduction in tariff will ultimately affect the Indian economy. And that is why India says that because we have raised the tariffs between 2014 and 19, and hence 2019 must be taken as the base year for tariff reduction. Now we come to the second important point of conflict, that is the ratchet clause. Now ratchet clause is again related to the tariff rate structures. The other country says that once we have entered into this free trade agreement, the tariffs must continuously reduce. Tariffs cannot be increased, but India wants flexibility on the tariff structure because we know that our economy is very much fluctuating and we are a developing economy, and we also know that we are surrounded by countries like China, which is famous for dumping their products in multiple countries. We feel that every country must have the freedom to reduce or increase the tariffs as per their economic situation. So India says that we must have the freedom to increase the tariff rates as well. The third important issue is related to the rules of origin. Now first understand that what is exactly mean by rules of origin. Now rules of origin decide the economic nationality of a product. That means that where that product has originated. Now let us understand this. Let us take examples of two countries. One is China and other is Japan. Now suppose India is importing the same product from these two countries, that is, let's say steel. So now because there are multiple factors in deciding the tariff structure, let us assume that the import duty which is levied by India on the product from China is around 15%. And from Japan it is around 10%. So now if India is getting its steel from China or from Japan, the rate structures will differ, and that is why India must know that the steel which India is importing is coming from which country. Now this is decided by the rules of origin procedure. Now the difference between India and other countries is that India says that the rules of origin must be strictly from the country of import. But other countries says that the rules of origin can be anywhere within the RCEP region. Let us discuss how. Now in this very example, because China knows that India is levying a higher duty on the products imported from China and lower duty from the products imported from Japan. So that is why China understands that this higher duty will make the Chinese products uncompetitive compared to the Japanese products. So now what China will do is that it will first export their products to Japan, and then it will reroute their products via Japan to India. So that India will levy only this amount of duty, that is 10%, because India is getting the product from Japan. But in actual what is happening is that China has rerouted the path of that product and has used Japan in order to reduce the tariff duties on China's products. So now India says that it should not be done because the main country which has made that product is China, and that is why it should be strictly from the country of import. Now come to the fourth important point, that is the tariff lines. India says that every country must have the freedom to negotiate country-specific agreements, because India says that obviously because India has different relations, different dynamics, whether it is economic, whether it is military, let's say with China and Japan, and that is why India says that we must have freedom to have country-specific negotiations. But then other countries say, then what is the use of the free trade agreement as a grouping? That is why they say that no, the tariff lines should be more or less uniform across the whole group, across all the countries which are there in the group. The fifth important thing is related to data localization. Here again India says that every country must have the control over the flow of e-data, that is the electronic data. Here India says that all the multinational companies which are giving their services in India must store the data of Indian citizens within India. On the other hand, the other countries as well as big multinational companies say that it can increase the cost of operations of those MNCs, and that is why they prefer that there should be a free flow of data, and only that data which is relating to the national security purposes must be confined within the national boundaries. The other data must have the free flow across the whole region. And the last issue is related to the safeguard mechanisms. Now this safeguard mechanisms is in order to deal with the import surge. For example, because of some factors, China increases its exports to India and India faces import surge, that is sudden import surge. Then India says that India must have auto trigger mechanism in place. That is, India must have the power to deal with this import surge and it can levy the necessary duties. But the other countries again say that this should be only in the exceptional cases and this should not be on the routine basis. So these are the 6 primary areas where there is a conflict of thoughts between India and other countries. Further, the historical facts also do not support India joining any such kind of free trade agreement deal. Because historically, India's track record has not been spectacular when it comes to the free trade agreements. The data suggests that the utilization rate of India's free trade agreement stands at just 25%. And the countries which are involved in this specific RCEP, India has a trade deficit with almost all these countries. With ASEAN countries, the merchandise trade deficit has widened to $14.6 billion. Further, India also has a trade deficit with the South American Free Trade Bloc, that is Mercosur. India also runs the trade deficit with the African countries. And more importantly, we all know that the trade deficit with China is very huge. This graph represents the trade balance between India and China. This is the line of imports. Just see the line fluctuating, and this is barely the line of import. And this is the gap between exports and imports of India, and which shows the huge trade deficit. But again, there are some reasons which experts feel can benefit India if it joins the RCEP. The biggest of that reason is that yes, as far as the balance of trade is concerned, we are deficit, but when it comes to services, we are the superpower. And that is why it says that if we enter into the RCEP, the services can change the equation. The trade in services are in surplus and is growing at a strong rate. And that is why the RCEP could provide a boost to India's service exports. So now let us revise this topic in brief once again. This topic has appeared in the context that recently the Japanese official has presented its hope to the fact that India might join the RCEP. Further, then we discussed that what is RCEP, which is a free trade agreement, and it was proposed as a free trade agreement between 10 ASEAN countries and their 6 FTA partners including India. But as we all know that in 2019 India opted out from the RCEP. The present situation is that RCEP has entered into the force with rest of the countries. Then we discussed some of the important facts related to the RCEP in terms of global GDP, share of world trade, FDI flows and global population. In detail then we discussed that what is the point of conflict between Indian stands as well as the stand of other countries. There are 6 primary reasons. First is the base year, second Reshe clause, third is the rules of origin, fourth tariff lines, fifth data localization and sixth the safeguard mechanism. We have discussed all these points in very detail. Then we discussed the historical facts related to the India and its experience in free trade agreements, and we saw that in most of the free trade agreements and with most of the countries including China as well as other ASEAN countries, India runs trade deficit. And in the last we discussed that there is one very important point which should not be missed, and many experts believe that India can benefit out of it, which is the trade in services. So the experts said that the trade in services are in surplus and it could provide a boost to India's service exports and might change the overall equation. Now we will move on with our next topic. This topic is in relation to the cheetah reintroduction project in India, and this topic is seen in news multiple times for last 1 to 2 years, and that is why it has a very high relevance and significance as far as the UPSC examination is concerned. So this news article has appeared in today's The Hindu Delhi edition at text and the context page. And the context of this particular article is that Union government is launching an action plan to introduce 50 of the African cheetahs, that is from the African savanna grasslands, to India. Now one important fact is that cheetahs have got extinct in India in the post-independence period. If you go to the historical expanse of the cheetah population in India, this map shows it. Now as you can see here that cheetah population was present across India and present day Pakistan, and it was a widespread population. And it covered almost all the parts, the western part of India, the northern part, the central part, as well as the south of India. And if you closely look at the period, the years in which this data is collected, it is just during the colonial period, that is the British period. So it is not like that we are talking about many centuries ago. No, we are just talking about the period around 100 or 200 years ago. So this means that cheetah population was spread across India and Pakistan at that point of time. Similarly, if you go by the historical aerial expanse of cheetah population across the globe, you can see that this particular color shows the expanse of cheetah as the historical range. And these black patches showcase the present distribution of cheetah population. Now, as far as this Asian continent is concerned, there is just one black patch, which means that in Asia, the cheetah population has got extinct except the parts of central Iran. That is why, as far as the IUCN red list is concerned, that is the global status of the threatened degree of cheetah, the population lies in the vulnerable category group. That means the cheetahs according to IUCN red list are vulnerable. And this population lies in the appendix 1 of the sites. But as far as the India is concerned, the cheetah population has got extinct. So cheetahs have vanished from approximately 90% of their historical range in Africa and are extinct in Asia except for a single isolated population of perhaps 50 individuals in central Iran. This is very important. Similarly, 79% of all the cheetah populations contain 100 or fewer individuals. Now this is talking about the one population group within a specific area. For example, if we talk about the population of cheetahs in this part, that is the central Iran part, The data suggests that there are just around 40 number of cheetahs present in this entire area. That means in entire Asia, we have just 40 cheetahs and 10 to 12 number of adult cheetahs only in this particular group. So that is why it is said that around 80% of all the cheetah population present in different patches, in all those groups we have fewer than 100 individuals. So till now we have discussed the factual information. Now we will come to the analytical part. First of all, it is important that you should know that cheetahs thrive in diverse habitats ranging from the scrub forests to the savanna and dry grasslands to the arid as well as semi-arid open habitats. Now one thing is very important, as we know that cheetahs are one of the fastest moving animals. This means that the natural habitat where cheetahs can live should not be a dense forest. Rather, it should have ample amount of open spaces which can provide the cheetahs to have opportunity to run fast. Clear? That is why cheetahs are mainly found in the scrub forests. These are not dense forests. The grasslands, which provide a huge vast aerial expanse where cheetahs can run to their maximum speed. But the point is that despite knowing the fact that cheetahs can thrive in the diverse habitats, and also the fact that cheetahs were actually present in diverse locations across the Indian mainland, why the cheetahs got extinct? So these are the four primary reasons behind the extinction of cheetahs. The first is that what happened was that way back, cheetahs were used to hunt black buck, and that is why many kings and rajas took the cheetahs from the wild to their palaces in order to use those cheetahs to hunt black buck. So in this sense, the cheetahs lost their natural habitat. The second important thing was the British policies of deforestation, construction of railways, etc. Moreover, the British also announced bounty for killing the cheetahs. So in order to have these rewards and awards from the British government, many people were involved into killing and illegal hunting of these cheetahs. The third important thing was that because of these two things, there was a reduced genetic diversity and very high infant mortality rate among the cheetah population. Further, it is also witnessed that the hobbies and interests of the rajas and kings, especially in the medieval era, was such that they were not the wildlife conservationists. They used to hunt the animals. For example, it is believed that the King Akbar had around thousands of cheetahs in his palace, which was used by him for his personal interests. So the thing is that at that point of time, we were not aware about the wildlife conservation principles and importance. So that is why we were involved in hunting and illegal poaching of cheetah population, which ultimately led to the extinction of this species across Asia. And that is why in order to reintroduce cheetahs in India, the government of India is planning for a reintroduction project whereby the African cheetahs will be brought from Africa and will be translocated in India. But despite this, several environmentalists have said that there are multiple issues which are involved in this reintroduction project, and that is why now we will look at what are those issues involved. The first and the foremost issue is that the cheetah reintroduction project is coming in direct clash with the lion conservation project. So the natural habitat is same for cheetah as well as lion. For example, if we talk about the Kuno National Park, where it is believed that cheetahs will be reintroduced. Now in the same national park, we are also planning to introduce the lions from Gir forest, that is in Gujarat, because we have only one particular area of Asiatic lions, that is Gir National Park. So we think that restricting the animal species into one particular area can be very dangerous. For example, let's say that if there is a huge deforestation, or there might be a spread of deadly disease, or there can be a forest fire in this Gir National Park. So we must have some other areas also, so that our Asiatic lions are not dead in one go. That is why we are translocating the Asiatic lions from the Gir to the Kuno National Park. So now the experts question this, that Kuno National Park will be having lions, will also be having cheetahs, and these are the tertiary predators having almost same prey species. So in a way they will compete among themselves, they will kill themselves. So that is why this goes against the principle of biodiversity conservation. The second important thing is that cheetahs need extensive areas, as we have already discussed, that because they run very fast, so that is why they require extensive areas. And the natural habitats of African cheetahs are slightly different from the Asian cheetahs. The habitats which India has is different in some degree as compared to the African habitat. So experts again say that it might not be sustainable up to a very long period. The third important thing is that India has huge number of animal wildlife conflict cases on daily basis. Even if we introduce cheetahs into our national parks, what is the guarantee that there will not be human wildlife conflict? What is the guarantee that there might not be illegal trafficking and poaching in those areas? Because we know the present situation is that we are not able to done away completely with this illegal poaching. Next important thing is the natural ecosystems. As we have discussed that the natural ecosystems of Africa versus Asia is entirely different. Similarly, Namibia versus India is entirely different. So the point is that even if you reintroduce one particular species of population from one area to other area, is it guaranteed that all the natural climatic environmental conditions of these two areas are same? Experts say that no, it cannot be exactly same. Further, the experts have also questioned the basic objective of this reintroduction project. Several experts have said that this reintroduction program is not aimed at conserving the biodiversity, rather they are aimed at boosting the tourism potential. Because if we have lions, if we have cheetahs, we can invest in lion safaris, cheetah safaris, and all that thing. So in the name of adventure tourism, what we are doing is that we are playing with the natural ecosystems. So these are the issues which are involved, which have been raised by multiple experts for the cheetah reintroduction action plan. Our next topic is headlined as Get These Wrinkles Out of the South Asian Textile Story. Now, as the headline is suggesting, that this is something in relation to the textile industries of the South Asian region. This article has appeared in today's The Hindu Delhi edition at page number 6 in the article section. And as far as the UPSC scheme of syllabus linked to this very article is that this topic falls under the General Studies paper 1 in the main section of geography, specifically to the human geography part. As far as the micro section is concerned, the UPSC mentions the topic factors responsible for the location of primary, secondary and tertiary industries in various parts of the world, including India. So in this very sense, we will take very important textile industry, that is the cotton industry, in today's session. So now it is very common sense that locational factors responsible for the industrial distribution will be same in India as well as world. So that is why we will take up the general factors responsible. You just have to differentiate between the examples. For example, if you are writing about the textile industries in the context of the world, mention globally important cities like Dhaka, Beijing, Islamabad, Chicago, etc. Or if you are writing about the cotton industry in India, you have to mention cities like Ahmedabad, Nagpur, Coimbatore, Surat, Mumbai, etc. So only the examples will differ. Obviously, the locational factors are same in India as well as world. So the first important factor for the cotton industry, or for that matter any industry, is the raw material as well as the type of raw material. So the raw material deals with two things. One is the availability part and other is the type of raw material. As far as the cotton industry is concerned, the cotton is the raw material of pure nature. Now what is this pure nature? Let us understand. So primarily there are two types of industries, like there is one weight losing industry, other is the weight gaining industry. Now weight gaining industries are those industries whereby the raw materials after processing increase in the weight. Weight losing industries are those industries whereby the raw materials lose their weight once the final product is designed. For example, the iron and steel industry is the weight losing industry because it is estimated that from tons of iron ore we get only few kilograms of usable iron which can be converted into steel. So this means that iron is a weight losing industry. Then third, there are some raw materials which are pure in nature, that is the weight of the raw material as well as the weight of the final product in which that raw material is used remains same. So cotton is a pure nature of raw material. Now the second important thing is that if the raw material or the industry is weight losing in nature, this means that in order to reduce the transportation cost, you have to set up these industries near to the raw material. If the raw material is of pure nature or weight neutral or weight gaining in nature, then you have to set industries near the market. This is done in order to optimize the transportation cost. Now we know that because the cotton is the raw material of pure nature, that means you can set up the cotton industry anywhere where you want. It can be either near to the market, it can be either near to the raw material, or it can be either in between these two things. So this was the first important factor. The areas producing the cotton will generally and obviously be more suitable for setting up of cotton industries. For example, in India, the cotton industries are mostly located in the central Deccan as well as the western Gujarat region. Why? Because here we have the presence of black soils, and black soils are mostly relevant for growing of cotton. So because these areas are producing cotton, and hence they invite the establishment of the cotton industry. Similarly, the second important thing is the market, because market drives the consumption pattern. If there is a huge demand in any area, the industries can be set up in those particular areas. For example, the tropical countries like India, Bangladesh, African countries, South American countries, they have warm climate. And because these warm climate demands huge number of cotton based clothing. So because of this, there is a high demand in these countries. Moreover, these are the developing countries which obviously have higher population base, which in turn boost the demand. So if the demand is very high, you can set up the industries near to the demand centers so that you reduce the transportation cost and you maximize your sales. The third important thing is the climate of that area, because the climate will be having a direct impact on the quality of the raw material. So it is said that moist and the humid climate are most preferable climate as far as the cotton growing is concerned, because the cotton thread does not break in the moist and humid climate, and thus it produces the quality cotton. The fourth important thing is the labor, because labor have skills and knowledge. If you have to run the textile mills or cotton mills, then obviously you will be needing the labor in order to load, unload, packaging, processing. So all these activities will be somehow related to the labor, and that is why the labor efficiency will play its own role. Fifth, the power resources. In order to run your mills, you need power source. Those sources can be coal, those sources can be hydro or electricity generated from the renewable sources. But the bottom line is that industries can only be set up in those areas where we have continuous and reliable power supply. Next important thing is transportation. The transportation is used for both the purposes. That is, we also need the backward linkages. We also need the forward linkages. What are backward linkages? Backward linkages are the linkages from the source of the raw materials to the industries. These are the linkages between the industry to the market. So roads, rails, waterways, airways, all the means of transportation, the areas which are having these transportation lines will be more suitable for setting up of the cotton industries. And last but not the least is an important part, that is the capital. Now capital will depend that what type of industries are you going to set, whether are you setting the large scale industries or are you setting the small scale industries. So the amount of capital will vary, but capital is necessary. For example, the state of Gujarat as well as Maharashtra is blessed with huge number of capital because of the high business as well as entrepreneurial opportunities existing in these areas. And that is why, because of the presence of huge capital in these areas, they attract a lot of industries, not only the cotton or textile industries, be it the petrochemical industries, be it the pharma industries. These areas are one of the most sought locations for setting up of multiple industries. So these are the factors responsible for the cotton industries in India as well as world. Now, more specifically to India, we should also understand that what are the prime reasons for the shifting of the cotton industries from the old nuclei, that is Mumbai, to the new nuclei, that is Coimbatore, Nagpur, Bangalore, Indore, etc. Because the question can be asked in this sense also. So here are the listed reasons in front of you. First is the better transportation facilities. Railway lines are penetrating deeper into peninsular region, which are providing the opportunities to redistribute the industries up to those areas which have low cost of production. Second, nearness to the coal producing areas for power generation, for example Nagpur. Third is the better market facilities, better port facilities which are provided by cities like Kolkata in order to not only domestically trade in cotton but also to export the cotton and tap the potential of the global market. Next is the better financial facilities, for example in Kanpur. Now with the government of India taking steps in direction of the financial inclusion, new cities are tapping their own financial potential and Kanpur is also one of them. Next, increase in the cost of land in cities like Mumbai is also one of the biggest factor that the industrialists are shifting away from these centers. Further, as we know, with the coming of the power loom, the handloom sector is losing its relevance. This has led to the informalization and setting up of the textile sector in the smaller areas also. So these are the primary reasons that why the cotton industries are getting shifted from Mumbai to the new nuclei, that is the Coimbatore, Bangalore, Indore, Nagpur, etc. Now our next topic is from the Prelims point of view environment section. This topic reads the African technique being used to translocate the deer from Keoladeo National Park. Now the context of this very article is that Africa's BOMA technique shall be deployed at the Keoladeo National Park in Rajasthan to transfer the deers, that is the spotted deers, to Mukundra Hills Tiger Reserve, which is also present in Rajasthan. This is done in order to provide Mukundra Hill Tiger Reserve with spotted deers ahead of proposed shifting of 2 tigers to the Mukundra Hills. Now as far as your examination is concerned, first you need to be aware that where are Keoladeo National Parks and Mukundra Hills Tiger Reserves. Both of these protected areas are present in Rajasthan. And the second important thing for you people is that what is exactly meant by Africa's BOMA technique, because this term can as it is be asked in your UPSC prelims paper. So we'll understand that what is BOMA technique. BOMA technique is basically an enclosure in this triangular shape which is made to capture the animals. Now there are 2 ways to capture the animals. The first way is that you chemically immobilize the animals. This is done in order to temporarily immobilize the animals. Once those animals are immobilized, they are put in the vehicles and then they are transported. The other technique is the BOMA technique, whereby no chemical immobilization techniques are used. And hence there is no danger of chemicals reacting in a different way with the animal's body. So what happens in this technique is that, for example, we have like the animals roaming here. So these animals are lured by providing certain foods which they eat in these enclosure walls. So initially there are no barricades which are shown over here. This is completely open area. These animals, once they spot their food elements in this area, they continuously run towards these areas. Once they enter into this enclosure wall, these barricades are put to not to allow those animals to return back. These animals continuously run towards this direction because of the lurement, and somehow to this narrow funnel structure there is a slope provided up to this vehicle. They keep on running and enter the vehicles through this slope. As you can see here, this is basically the deers running from this particular area in a specific direction, and then there are men who are standing with the enclosure walls, and the animals directly enter into these truck through these openings. So here the animals are not chemically immobilized, they are just lured to enter into these enclosure walls, and from these enclosure walls they are carried in the truck, and then these trucks transport these animals. So this is known as the BOMA technique. So this was very brief because you just need to be aware about the BOMA technique, which is recently in news. Now we will move towards our last topic. India hopes to put down roots in Arctic. Now under this topic we will discuss the location based things, that is which are those countries which border the Arctic regions in the North Pole. Then we'll discuss the India's presence in Arctic, and recently India has come up with its own Arctic policy. So we will discuss the main principles and pillars of the Arctic policy and the basic aims of the India's Arctic policy. First of all, if we look closely at this map, there are 8 countries which border this particular region. The countries are USA, Canada, Denmark, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Finland and Russia. So these 8 countries make this Arctic Circle and border these countries, and these 8 countries are the members of the Arctic Council also. So remember these bordering countries of this particular region. Next will come that what is the Indian presence in Arctic. So we'll follow the timeline. In 2008, the Indian research station known as Himadri was established in the International Arctic Research Base at Ny-Ålesund in Spitsbergen, Svalbard in Norway. Then in 2014, IND-ARC was established and deployed in the Arctic region. Now this IND-ARC is the country's first multi-sensor mode observatory which was deployed in Arctic. In 2016, India's northernmost atmospheric laboratory. Now atmospheric laboratory, as the name is suggesting, you will study the atmosphere. This was established at Gruvebadet, and this laboratory is equipped with several instruments that can study the things which are related to the atmosphere and environment. For example, clouds, precipitation, long-range pollutants and other atmospheric parameters. Further, India also have the observer status. Now this is very important. India is a observer member in the Arctic Council and participates in several meetings that are mostly themed around the research. So this is the Indian presence in the Arctic region. Now we'll discuss the India's Arctic policy. This policy has been released by Ministry of Earth Sciences and it is based on the following 5 pillars: science and research, economic and human development cooperation, transportation and connectivity, governance and international cooperation, national capacity building in the Arctic region. So these pillars are important because they are aimed at socio-economic development, and that too in sustainable manner, of the Arctic region. Further, the aims of the India's Arctic policies are also listed in front of you. These aims are obviously in line with the above mentioned pillars. For example, the pillar was national capacity building in the Arctic region, and that is why the aim says strengthening the national capabilities and competencies in science and exploration, climate, environment protection, maritime and economic cooperation with the Arctic region. Further, they also focus on developing the human resources as well. Second thing is that the policy aims at strengthening the inter-ministerial coordination in pursuit of India's interest in the Arctic. Further, we all know that because climate change is a reality and the climate change impacts will not be restricted to any particular region, rather it will be transferred across the globe. In this very line, India aims to enhance the understanding of the impact of climate change in the Arctic on India's climate, economy and energy security. And in this very line, the implications of ice melting has also to be studied on India's economic, military and strategic interests related to the global shipping routes, energy security and exploration of resources also. Further, as we know that the climate is also linked with the third pole, that is the Himalayas. So India also aims at studying the linkages between the polar regions and Himalayas, which we can also call as cryosphere. Further, India also aims to deepen the cooperation between India and the countries of the Arctic region under various Arctic forums, drawing expertise from scientific and traditional knowledge. And at last, India aims to increase India's participation in the Arctic Council and improve the understanding of the complex governance structures in the Arctic, relevant international laws and geopolitics of the region. So now is the time for the question of the day. The question asked from yesterday's DNS dated 20th March 2022 was in relation to the golden langur. There were 3 statements given and you had to find the correct statement out of the given 3 statements. The statement 1 said, the golden langur, a primate found in the forest along the Indo-Bhutan border in Assam. The statement 2 said, it is listed in Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. And statement 3 says, it is listed as a critically endangered species by the IUCN Red List. Now the third statement is incorrect. It is not critically endangered, and that is why option A, that is 1 and 2, is the correct answer. The question of the day from today's DNS dated 21st March 2022 is, the term BOMA technique has been in news with reference to what? Option A, particle physics. Option B, animal capture. Option C, mRNA vaccine. Option D, carbon sequestration.